There we go. Just a little bobble. Okay, so this is the very, very first part of the project, which was related to the little $2,500 grant we got matched by Economic Development Commission funds to put in the community garden beds. So the folks in the top picture there were the volunteers who came out during COVID to clean up the site. Actually, this was slightly before, this was the fall before COVID. And then in that spring when COVID hit, we got the beds built with the assistance of Mike Joyce and the kids in his carpentry program. And then some kids from Marianapolis, you can't quite see in the very bottom center, came in afterwards and put on sealer on a community service day. You can see Renee Waldron there, resident in the neighborhood, and of course our longtime town clerk loading up brush on that day that we cleaned up. What you can't see is the picture of me, because thank God nobody had a camera out, was me in that weeping cherry tree, cutting down a loose branch, a definite OSHA reportable at the time. But the branch did come down and I did not come down with it. Anyway, so that's all sort of background on how we first got started. We'll give you a progress report on where we are with the renovations and all the other planning grant. But first I want to bring up it's going to page me down, page over. No, I had to do it this way. Come on, there we go. Special guest joining us this evening is, I gotta go back. State Senator May Flexer, who's got some exciting news to share. May, of course, is a big booster for things that happen in Thompson and has been as long as I've known her, and I consider her a friend. So I'm happy that she took some time to come out tonight. So microphone's up here. Nobody's as loud as I am, so everybody else needs to stand close to it.
So this is how people online can hear.
That is how people online can hear.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me here this evening. And I am thrilled to see this project still moving forward. And it's such a great example of how people in this community come together and find a goal and are able to accomplish that goal, to bring people from all across the community, from nonprofits to our school system. And watching this move forward is just really exciting. And it's exciting like a lot of other projects here in Thompson. And this week, the town worked so diligently on their application for the Community Investment Fund and has secured over $4 million for the mill renovation project across the street. And that took a lot.
It's actually for Main Street. The mill renovation is something else.
Well, it's a part of it, right? It's all connected.
Yep.
For the Main Street project along
Yes.
the mill here. And it's just so, it's really an exciting accomplishment. It's a very competitive process. And I have to give my hands off to the leadership here in the town with the first select woman and Tira's work and just really diligently taking the feedback, making sure that Thompson was competitive. It's a very competitive process. And there's a lot of big towns, frankly, that towns like ours are competing against to get these resources. And Thompson worked really, really hard to make the application competitive. And this is going to have a really meaningful impact. And it all ties together with what you're talking about tonight and what's happening at the mill, what's happened already on Main Street, what is going to happen because of this investment from the Community Investment Fund. There's just a lot of exciting things happening here, and I'm just thrilled to be able to support it and to be a part of it, and glad to be a part of this conversation here this evening. I just hope that everyone can see that things like this, things like that successful application for the redevelopment, all of that happens when people work together, and that's what's happening so well here in Thompson. So excited for this conversation and really grateful to be a partner in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and that grant absolutely could not have happened without the support, literally could not have happened without the support of our elected representatives, because of the way that grant is structured. The state actually expects that your members of the legislature will go and advocate on your behalf. So that is an indication that the people who represent us are in fact representing us. And again, to be clear about that $4,047,484. The bulk of that will be going for a full depth reconstruction of Main Street and its related sidewalks. That's over 3 million of the grant goes to that. A small portion of the money will go to the renovation of Oscar Swanson Park. That is the Veterans Memorial Park across the street from Milltown Grill. An even smaller amount will go to either renovate or relocate the Veterans Memorial right here at the northern juncture of Main Street and Route 12. Either renovating that little island in place or moving the memorial down to Swanson Park as we come up with solutions there. And then everything else that we haven't already discussed is to close that renovation funding gap for 65 Main. So today, and I'll advance the slide here now. Next slide, come on now. We have a lag here. There we go. So just today, you'll see right in the center, the gentleman in the neon t-shirt, that is Mike from Flawless Cleaning, Painting and More. They are a Thompson-based business who were they were the lowest bidder and a fully what they call responsive bidder for the exterior painting. So that work started today and will wrap up, weather allowing, over the next 2 weeks. That will put a pin in the project until the Sept grant paperwork is finalized, but that will have expended the original federal grant from the US SBA, which was a part of the appropriations process through Congress, in this case through Senators Blumenthal and Murphy. They put that one through. So you can see some of the renovation that's gone on. The picture with the cherry picker there was part of the hazmat abatement. And I just want to touch on this because one of the things that we've heard from people who are skeptical about the project is, why don't you just knock it down? Why would you put money into renovating this structure? So there's two responses to that. One is, you can't knock something down for free either. So if the concern is taxpayer dollars, nobody's going to give you a grant to just knock something down and leave a hole behind. So in that case, taxpayer dollars, local dollars would have been implicated, whereas the grants that have funded what we're doing now through this process and the renovation were no local match required. They were sort of unicorn grants. So the federal government, in this case, is picking up the note on this. In addition to the fact that we would have had to knock it down, that abatement process, that was $200,000 almost of hazmat abatement. So if the town had done that on their own dime, we would also have been on the hook for that hazmat abatement. So it wouldn't have been like, you're going to spend 15 grand to have somebody come in with a wrecking ball. It would have been tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you still would have had nothing in the end. So in this case, we've got the federal government picking up the tab to start the renovation. The SIF grant will close that, and we will then have an asset to put into use. And that's exactly what we've got here. So you can see the gentleman in the hard hat near the bottom, that was actually an in-kind labor donation to do some work on the foundation. And the results of that are bottom left. You can see Senator Murphy and Congressman Courtney have visited the site in progress, met with us there. And then bottom right is more or less what it's like in there right now. It was a total gut, which is cool.
And the second reason, Tara, if I can jump in.
Sure.
Because of the deed, right?
And yes, and then of course there was the will in the deed, which says that the town can't sell it, can't knock it down. And if in theory it were to be hit by the next planet-killing meteor, we would be obliged to build it back in kind, which would not be free. So for any time you hear that particular note of skepticism, please respond appropriately. I beg of you. So the other things that we did, of course, in the other grant, which was through USDA UIIP, which is what we're wrapping up tonight, is the public workshops. That included the planning games where everybody sat in this room and got to meet their neighbors and decide what the priorities were locally. The results of that, which are a little hard to see on the screen, are there in the middle. The greatest amount of agreement came on deciding about marketing and outreach, establishing the daily operations for the facility, in other words, building the business plan, and somewhere in there it says farm to fork. I can't see my own.
Purple.
There we go, purple on the bottom right. And those were the things that everybody consistently found interesting, which were a part of what I had pitched to USDA in the first place. That we were going to plan this facility not just to have a town function, but to tie back to the agricultural traditions that people value here, while also building local economies through helping build business skills. And then you'll see on the right, there's pictures of some of the students who did a smaller version of the game in a special session last November, where the results were similar, right? We're interested in the connection to the high school, to learning these skills, to developing a farm to fork network and career path through the high school eventually, but also getting to some of those low hanging fruit items in a way with the marketing and outreach and the existing business and audiovisual career paths that exist. Up in the top left, you'll see Wayne Wiseman addressing the crowd and talking about permaculture, and we're going to get into that, I think, next. And I'm going to let Maura take over. There we go.
Okay.
And you tell me when to advance.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Maura Roby, if you don't know me, at ECCD. And really happy to be involved, especially in this whole project, especially in the permaculture and food forest portion. I had taken a course on permaculture and I was interested in learning more. So having the consultants, I got to kind of hang around with them and glean some great things off of them. And as they watched the process of them developing this plan. And for those that might not know, just a reminder, like permaculture is a type of agriculture that really mimics the systems that are found in nature to the extent that, you know, as much as possible. And we know those systems are systems that really work. There's no waste. They're sustainable. So it's a really great way to sort of introduce this to people, I think, to have it here. And I'm really looking forward to, you know, funding that will do the implementation part of that. And of course, there's the food forest, which is the lower section of the property by the French River. And that's a whole floodplain that really needs, you know, the ecological function is, needs to be brought back to a better way of functioning. So those are all kind of what's in that plan. So I hope everybody gets a chance to look at it if you haven't already. And then I was able to take a site walk with some folks in this room actually, so that we could really take a look at some of those, where some of those plantings would go. They're called plant guilds. And so it was a great way to kind of get to see things. Yes, next slide. So I just wanted to talk a little bit, because this is related somewhat to this project, the French River Stormwater Best Management Practices project that ECCD also was involved with installing a couple of rain gardens. The project was funded by EPA and then administered by Connecticut Deep. Next slide. And this is, I stuck in there because we always need to do this when we do grants to let people know who we are. So if you don't know who we are, we're one of 5 districts in the state, and you can see the towns that we serve are circled. There's 36 municipalities, and our district tends to really focus a lot on water quality issues. And so writing grants and doing education all to meet that end. Next slide. So just to talk a little bit about rain garden benefits, I mean, there are just so many. Here's a few, and especially with all of the, climate change and more flooding and happening, maybe not right now, we've been in kind of a drought, but, we know that it's coming, right? And so we get, a lot of rain all at once, and so that's all stormwater that's gonna carry pollutants. And so we're trying to encourage people to keep the pollutants on site, and so having a bowl-shaped garden, reduce stormwater runoff, infiltrate some of the pollutants, provide important flood control, groundwater recharge. And then an added benefit is we have declining pollinator species, and so we can help them out as well with perennials. Next slide. So this is the first rain garden installed by ECCD and volunteers. I don't know if anyone here helped out on that. I'm sorry I didn't get the names of the people that helped, but I know some folks from this group helped, which is awesome. And we really look for volunteers when we do rain gardens and any kinds of projects like these to spread the word and just try to get people to see that these are things that you can do at home. So at Blaine Road and Route 12, there's one garden there. Oh, and that's the rain garden sign that was created. So that will be installed as well for education. Next slide. And there's the second garden. I haven't actually seen them myself. There, but I'm assuming they're right next to each other.
They're right across the street from each other.
Okay. So again, some volunteers helping out. You can see a little bit of the, the street and the gutter. And so you basically, all that water running off of that road is going right into that garden and capturing it and providing all those awesome benefits. And this actually, next slide. So this project complements some other projects that have already been done in Thompson, and one of them is the downspout planter here at the library. And there's also a rain garden as well. So that's been a past project, and there is a tree filter at the elementary school, and storm drain filters were installed. So, all of these things together are just really helping with all of this stormwater. Next slide. So the rain garden that we designed for 65 Main, which I'm hoping people will be able to volunteer when there's funding to install, is about 180 square feet, and it is it's infiltrating about 1,100 square feet of stormwater runoff, potentially from the roof. In this case, we have some cisterns that are going to be collecting water to water other gardens if that all gets put in. So it'll sort of be some of the leftover runoff, but it's still, all just to keep that water on site. And then I picked like chokeberry and some sedges and verbena. I mean, these are all things that are native, and that's really important to have the native plants that are indigenous to our area that are able to survive. So the hope is that after a few years of maintenance, these things can kind of take care of themselves. So next slide. Talking all about rain gardens, just to make sure everybody knows what a rain garden is, and that's basically kind of it. It's just a bowl-shaped depression, and the sides will be sloped because you don't want to just drop off right from the edges. So you're going to have it sloped. So you're going to have different plants in different areas, which you're going to. But basically 6 inches is a standard to go down. So that's, and then you'll have about 3 inches of mulch. Next slide. So very quick run through of how to do this. Next slide. So just, there's some things that you need to know, and it's, basically wherever there's stormwater running off, it's not infiltrating. So it can be on a roof, it can be pavement, even lawn only infiltrates about 30% of rainwater. So that's definitely something as well. And you don't want it to be on too big of a slope. And then just, looking at other things like people have asked me a lot, like, oh, I have this wet spot. Isn't that a perfect area for a rain garden? And I'd say, no, not really, because unless you are planning on, taking the soil and amending it, there's a reason why the water is sitting there, it means it's not infiltrating, so your soil there is not a good soil to infiltrate, so unless you're gonna, which is a lot more work, so you probably wanna stick with somewhere that isn't wet. Next slide. Important to just do a perk test, I'm sure we all know what that is, you know, pretty much dig a 12-inch hole, fill it with water. You really want it to drain within 1 to 6 hours, that's gonna be your best soil. And you don't want to go any more than 18 hours, because then you start to run into, another question I get a lot is, won't it, attract mosquitoes? And so if standing water is sitting for like 24 hours, that's when you should, this isn't designed to do that. So you're not going to get mosquitoes as long as you follow the rules. Next slide. So the way that we do quick and easy figuring out is measure the area that is in square feet that's being put into the rain garden and divide it by 6, which is 6-inch depth, which is the standard. And then you know, that'll give you the size, and then you can do any shape really that you want. Next slide. And again, what I said before was you're gonna actually have 3 zones of planting for plants. So of course, in the middle, will have the most water. So you want those plants to actually be plants that you find in like wet areas. And then you go out from there. In the top, you really want it to be dry plants, plants that are adapted to dry and drought, because they aren't gonna get that much water. Top. Slide. So this is a cool little video that somebody sent me from the Groton Town Library Garden. I actually had to chop it off because it was too big to send you, but I really like the example of, so this is a parking lot, and it's basically when it's raining, and you can just see how that is just flowing right in there, and it really does fill up. And so I thought that was a great video and easy peasy, right? Now everybody can do it at home. I think that's all I have. Oh. Yeah, I mean, I just, I really enjoyed being part of this project, and I hope that I can continue, in some form as far as, you know, being able to see this be implemented. And so it's gonna be about funding, I guess, is like everything. And, so I really hope that I can, you know, it's been inspiring to see this community coming together for this. I've never seen like so many people at a meeting going for one cause, so. It's impressive. Thank you.
Thanks, Maura. And again, for those who haven't seen them, although I assume most people here have, these are the concept plans and some renderings that were done by Wayne Wiseman and Grant Depoy of the permaculture project, the folks that we hired as a part of this grant to complete this plan. So you can see in the top left is the what we would consider the main activity area. There's Main Street, the house, the profile of the house, the conceptual plans for the more ornamental gardens, including some terracing, that hedgerow of small trees or shrubs, where our additional partner of the American Chestnut Foundation has indicated that they will provide some seed stock of American chestnuts to plant there, which is important. It's an important historical tree that suffered a lot because of some imported blights, and the Chestnut Foundation, the American Chestnut Foundation, is working to repopulate that in its former native habitat. And then you can see the large view on the right also incorporates the 3 to 3.5-ish acre parcel of town-owned land, which is the west bank of the French River and is also technically a part of Riverside Park that nobody can get into right now. But once this public land is renovated, you can see on the screen there's some boardwalks and walking trails indicated on the plan, outdoor classroom space. And the plan is to remove, or as much as we can, minimize or eradicate the existing exotic invasives, which are also a problem everywhere, replace them again with those native species, in some cases with high food value. So the whole parcel really does work together in that idea of permaculture, which is at the nexus of agriculture, conservation, and really human ecology. So it's kind of cool. Let's see what's next. Oh, the kids are up. We have new partners. Almost everybody in this room looks like a kid to me. Regardless of being actual minor children, and we have a couple.
Yeah, that is true. Tim was my teacher at one point, so I will do that.
Yeah, so since we don't have a camera for the room, I'll let you know that we've got Kelly Langer and Tim O'Brien here. They are teachers up at Turtle Up Memorial High School in the marketing and videography programs, respectively. Josh Carlson is with them. He is a student in that concentration. And why aren't you up there?
I'm just here.
Oh, you're just here, okay.
Yeah.
She's supporting Josh. She's supportive.
You're supporting, she's moral support. Yes, I remember
She's
you.
in one of the pictures.
Yes, I remember you.
She's famous.
Anyway, so after the planning games, it had always been vaguely discussed, at least, that there was some natural way to connect the history of the 65 Main building, which was, of course, the superintendent's residence for its first 60 years or whatever, connect it back to the life of the school. And it's not going to be a residence ever again, but what is that function in that small business support center, economic development center located in our densest neighborhood? How do we tie that back? And Superintendent Smith wasn't able to be here tonight because they've got an important building committee meeting, but as she and I spoke more, and she has been talking more and more about these career paths that they're developing, especially at that time, you know, the brand new culinary path. It just seemed like a no-brainer. Let's tie all these things together. So Kelly is new in staff there and took it and ran with it.
Sure.
So you guys talk about your role now.
All right, yes, so I'm Kelly Langer, with Tim O'Brien, who's our videography teacher. He's behind the camera, obviously video and everything. Uniquely as well, Tim and I are both residents of Thompson. I'm lifelong, he's almost lifelong. I went to high school with his kids at Kennebott. I'm sure he wanted me to hold his age up like that as well. Yeah. So as most of you guys are probably aware, especially with the implementation of our new welding program that was very highly publicized, we're making a move toward more career pathways and letting the kids kind of explore what they can do post-secondary school while they're still in secondary school. I'm the business teacher at Turtle Out. I just started a little over a year ago. Pretty great. I love it. And what I foresaw with this is I have a marketing group of kids who really likes to be very, very creative. And they really love their phones. So if we can capitalize on that, and I can say, hey, we're gonna use our phones today, we're gonna get buy-in. So I said, let's do social media. So that's kind of what we've done. And I said, let's do social media, and they went crazy. There is a TikTok that you will not understand because they had to explain it to me, something about a capybara. But it does have people very excited in the school about 65 Main. I've been asked by probably no less than 30 kids and teachers alike what 65 Main is, because of course we put my name on it. What the role of us is, Tim in his class, Josh is in his class, and he's like the subject matter expert in videography, if you will. He's the guy. They've been documenting a lot of things. We had Tira come in, I think it was the second week of school, and speak to both of our classes collectively and explain 65 Main Street to them. Then actually yesterday, we went on a walking field trip. Thank God it wasn't real hot. And we walked down 65 Main. Tira was kind enough to meet us there, and we all toured 65 Main. These guys were going nuts with their video cameras, getting like shots on the ground and all kinds of stuff. My kids were doing reels. And getting different videos so that we have footage, because of course we can't go every week down there to get footage. To do some hype reels to get excitement about 65 Main. I think at this point, that's where we have to jump off with. That's our goal, is getting people excited about it, because then maybe that comes from people who have deeper pockets than what we're dealing with now. Maybe that comes with grants, maybe that comes with people who are like, yeah, I have extra millions, here you go. So hopefully we find those folks on TikTok. So that's Mr. Beast is coming, no, I'm just kidding. So hopefully that's gonna be our role right now as we transition to, you know, giving progress updates. And then hopefully being part of the business center in the future. But if you would like to follow us and see our footage so far and all of our different things we've done, we so far have the TikTok and the Instagram. We'll talk to Jocelyn about getting Facebook set up, because I have one for each, working on each platform. So we have at 65 Mainers. We can change these names because I realized it does look like we're in the state of Maine, but we didn't capitalize Maine, so we're good. And then Instagram at 65main.small.business. I got it. Both of those are up and running right now. And of course, Tim's doing some editing on some nice videos, and he'll have this whole thing documented for us.
65 meters sounds like a retirement home thing.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
So Josh, why don't you take a minute? It's your big moment, kid.
Yeah.
Talk to us.
Zoom in.
So, I took video production already, so I already knew some of this stuff, so that's why I'm. But, yeah, video production too, and I think personally, this is actually very interesting to me, because I was never an outbound person, so it's like videoing this stuff, going to talk to people, like I emailed you, I had never done that before, I really think this is cool. I've seen the TikToks and the Instagrams, they definitely catch your eye, but yeah, they're pretty nice, and I like this whole project, it's very cool.
Yeah, so when Josh says that he emailed me, he was looking for the history of the buildings. So I passed that on to him, including the dry documents like the will and the deed, but also stuff that Gio Martino sent over that he's been keeping track of through the Historical Society, because again, the history of the building with the Turtelot family, the connection to the high school, some of its troubled history here in the town since it's been vacant, and the trials and tribulations that those of us who have wanted to keep it from getting knocked down have gone through. So that's also some of the stuff that we're hoping that you guys can bring to your community through your efforts. So
The first assignment was to hype up this meeting. They did that to some extent, and we didn't get the footage obviously until yesterday, so that didn't happen so good as I would like it to. But their next goal is to give the history as well and start to educate people on it being part of the Turtelot legacy, if you will, and why it has to be redone, and kind of getting that buy-in instead of all the naysayers that like that, you know.
I'm gonna give Josh a plug, he's the star of our basketball team.
Oh, well, he'll tell you that.
Come to a couple games and be shocked.
Yes, he is very good. He did also take marketing last year, so he's like dual qualified.
How close to 1,000?
200 away.
200.
200 away from 1,000?
He probably, I would reach that unless he has a bad season. You're not gonna have that.
No.
No.
So that's your update from Turtelot Memorial High School and where we are in the process, which was a late addition, but one that has really taken off right away. So I'm super stoked, and apparently I'm going to be spending a lot of time in an educational setting this year.
Come on, man.
Back to high school.
Yeah, destroying young minds. Sign me up. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Carl, you're up.
All right. 65 Manas. I love it. Awesome.
Jocelyn's from Maine, by the way, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why you're not at the Freiburg Fair. But
Fried dough line is too long.
parking is crazy right now. I know it. All right. Well, thanks, Tira. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, I'm not in person. Happy, being someone who has worked in that old building. We used to have a food pantry operating out of the basement. It's just fantastic. All this energy around redesigning it and rethinking it and keeping it in the community. So I'm just congrats about that. Really excited. So, for Teague here, we have we have a kitchen now that's licensed by NDDH. We see ourselves as partners going forward, how we are. We've got a food processing space. We have a very busy food pantry. That you have up there, Tira, is awesome. The pantry also serves as processing space for us now, and when the weather's good, I know a lot of kids and other volunteers from the town and beyond come and we process food in the parking lot, and we serve out of that market and that emergency feeding site. We serve about 60 families a week. I know today, and there was not an appointment available, so we are really busy. We're ready to support however, whatever happens at 65 Main with the facilities that we have at Teague, and just happy to be a partner. But we haven't been planning this quite as long as Tira has in this project, but we have been planning to build a satellite building for Teague that is more robust for food, because we're booming seams, and we don't want to process food in a serving space anymore. So, buildings take a while to secure funding for. They don't get cheaper as time goes on, but we have an idea to build a space where our shipping container is right now into that hillside. It's all town land. And increase the capacity of the market, and the space for volunteers, and the space for processing food. So up till really talking and being involved with this group, we thought of it just as more processing space, a loading dock, refrigeration and freezer space like we have, but not really enhancing it too much beyond that, kind of sticking to our line of work. But just listening to what's happening, and looking at the trajectory of this project, and the kind of momentum and the needs, in a lot of ways, it's a kind of a blank canvas over there. We could easily add a couple or two or three commercial stoves and a fire suppression system, and make this something that is more of a food processing space, or a value added space for farmers or harvesters, to complement the work that would be being done at 65 Main, however it turns out. So we just want to say, and I know Ann is here and Allison is here, and we've talked about this internally, and we've talked about this with you too, Tira. Like, we're excited to see how this unfolds. And we've spoken about the work that we're doing around this new building. The board is energized. The Board of Education has kind of given us the green light. The town knows what we're doing. So watch out. We're here to kind of step up and help out some more. And as the plans kind of come together to really put this plan into action for 65 Main, I think we're going to be poised to be involved as we are now, and then really just on the heels of it to add more to what's happening in the town, and with the school, and with economic development, and with job training, and with processing of food. So that's really what we'd want to add, but I'll put up to my coworkers too. Just excited to be here. So thanks again, Tira, for your work, and to the town, and here we go.
So Tira, what this would mean for us is maybe a few conversations on how we might connect to the project, correct? In a way that we hadn't thought of originally. We've certainly talked about kitchen space, but we've determined that the kitchen space we have in our present building would not be amenable to the kind of business that we're talking about. So I think these are future conversations, and something we might want to fold in at some point. We're certainly not looking for an answer tonight, but it really came to us that that maybe we should be joining you in some of this vision. So more to come on that if you're interested, but I think it certainly feels like the right place for Teague to fit in.
Yeah, and that has been certainly, as you know, Anne, since you were one of the original organizational partners that I talked with before the first grant application went in, that synergy and relationship has always been in the back of the mind as we've been conceptualizing this as a business support center, but one with that focus on agriculture. Because there's not going to be a commercial kitchen in the 65 Main building either. But as those conversations have evolved, and Melinda's not here to really speak to this, so I can't go too far down that road. They have that culinary program now with the commercial kitchen. In that last meeting, she was saying that in order to get the full value out of that, she'd like to work out the planning for how that can be adult and continuing education during off-school hours or maybe over summers. So if this develops into a full-blown incubator program, there's where the coordination, I think, happens. So, you know, a true commercial kitchen, a certified kitchen where processing can happen, or maybe some cold storage or distribution to your client base with people applying their value-added skills that they learned through workshops. So I think the relationship's a natural one, and one we've talked about a lot. And, you know, next steps in the next 6 months are sort of articulating some of that in a fuller form. So, yeah, so thanks, guys. And it's going to be great to keep working on it. All right, Jocelyn, you're up.
I'm up, huh?
Yes, you are.
All right, everyone. I'm Jocelyn Leahy. I'm the Executive Director of Connecticut Resource Conservation and Development. If you're not familiar with our organization, we are a nonprofit 501c3. We've been around in Connecticut for almost 60 years now, and we cover the entire state of Connecticut. Our focus areas are on conservation, agriculture, and community development. So I don't know what better project fits into our mission than this project. I've been with RCND for a little over a year and a half now, so I kind of jumped in with both feet with Tara on this one right when I started, and tried to, you know, stay on top of everything as we were moving along. Our role in this project was to help with the outreach part of this. So with the assistance of our agricultural programs coordinator, we developed a little bit of like a letterhead and some of the flyers you've seen going around. And so we've been doing those postings right along the way. And we also coordinated 3 presenters to sort of bring the idea of what 65 Main could be to life by showing examples of other businesses and a farm included, and how it kind of all blends together. So I wanted to give you a quick overview of those 3 businesses, and I strongly suggest checking out their sites. Really, really cool things that they're doing. One of them, the Hope in Maine. This is actually a business out of hold on. It's Rhode Island. It's right next outside of Providence, and I'm losing the name right now. Warren, maybe? Sorry about that. But what did you say? Warren. Warren. Okay, so I think that's where their facility is located. So they've been around for about a decade. Their big thing is taking somebody who has an idea for a product, taking that product, scaling it up, teaching them about food safety regulations, recipe design, pricing, cost, and then actually putting them into their kitchens at their facility, building out those recipes into real products, marketing them, and then actually having a market on site with their members to be able to sell those things. They also connect farms with these product producers to be able to make sure that local ingredients are used in them. They're unique, I think, in this whole membership structure that they have, because they are guiding their members from step 1 to they're off on their own, and they gave some great examples of companies that we may recognize that are just out in the grocery stores and, you know, used at restaurants and things like that. And they had an amazing success rate too. About where a lot of these new startup food businesses, they go under because it's a really difficult market to get into. And through this membership program, they're helping them to succeed further. So is that exactly what 65 Main is going to be? I don't know, but a great, an idea that brings in a lot of the topics that we discussed. The other organization that we had present was Willimantic Food Co-op. So they are a full service grocery store, but their origins are really unique because it was grassroots. And so starting with a volunteer base was exactly how they got started. Now they've been around for many, actually going away from this, at this point, from the volunteer structure. But it gave us an idea of how could you bring food into a space or producers of food into a space with a volunteer focus. And I think that they're doing great things within their community, but also could be a resource for us in understanding that volunteer structure a little bit better, at least for the startup part of 65 Main. And then Full Heart Farm, owned by Allison Angelini, is a relatively small farm on the scale of things. She has been in business, I believe, 7 or 8 years now. So she's outside of what we consider to be the standard for new and beginning farmer, but close enough that she still remembers, you know, all of the challenges that new farmers face in understanding how to get their business going and how to get registered with the state, how to market your products. And so she gave a really interesting perspective on those challenges and the clientele who may be coming to 65 Main Street with some of the programs that are offered there. So again, I recommend checking out each of these organizations in Full Heart Farm. And it sounded like Mike Mowry, who was the membership for all of them, I shouldn't just single out him, were willing to talk with us further and kind of offer their expertise in maybe focusing some of our ideas into the planning process so that it makes sense in like an orderly fashion. So that's all I got for that. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so then the other way that Connecticut RCMP was involved in this project was by putting out a survey, an agricultural survey. The focus area for this survey was Eastern Connecticut. It was not just Thompson, but it did not extend into Mass and Rhode Island. This map here, what I did was I took, well, on the right-hand side, you can see all of the towns that responded. I didn't want to call out, you know, any individuals or anything, but the number of responses by town. And all of those responses you can see on this map here. So we had that cluster that we would expect in the Northeast region because that's where we put the survey out to. Those circles that you see are indicative of people's willingness to travel to a facility like this. So the innermost circle is the 0 to 5 mile radius from Thompson, or from this area. The middle one is 5 to 10 and the outer one is 10 to 20. So the reason that I put this together is because I don't know if, you know, the farm in the most center of that circle is the one who said 0 to 5 miles. But we're looking at this sort of space. And so I think if we wanted to learn about the interests of those that are in Mass and Rhode Island, we might want to consider expanding the survey to those regions to get some of their input based on the willingness to travel of the ones who did respond already. It was, I want to say 60% of the 38 responses we received said that they were willing to travel up to 20 miles to be able to participate in a facility like this. And so this is just kind of giving you a picture of who we might capture within those survey results that could participate. I, obviously having the raw data, could focus in on that and maybe we make direct connections with the people who are in that willingness to travel area. Next slide, please. As far as the demographics of who responded to the survey, I actually thought this was interesting because we've been talking about startup businesses, not just agricultural ones, but you know, business startups in general. And almost 82% of the folks that responded to the survey have been farming for more than 5 years. So I think that requires us to place a little bit of a filter on the results of this survey because those folks already have business plans, they're well established. They, probably understand the regulations that they're, need to operate under. However, they could be a great group of people to act maybe as mentors to those who are new in beginning and interested in participating in this facility. Other demographics that I didn't put on the screen, but we did have roughly 40% of what the USDA considers historically underserved communities for agriculture. Response was about 40% underserved communities response, and then 50% that just said not applicable to me, and then the other 10% was that they didn't want to answer those demographic questions. Next slide, please. So of the, so we had sort of two focus areas in the survey of the business and marketing side of things, and then the agricultural side of things as far as topics that people might be interested in. I think that the top question here, do you need help marketing your farm product? 63.2% said yes. So we have a group of people who responded that have a lot of farm and ag experience, but they need help getting to the people or to the distribution centers or to the stores or the restaurants. So that's something that interests me. And then because, and the second question, do you need help creating business plans? We had, it was about 50-50, but over 50% say no, we don't. And I think that that relates to the audience that responded in their, length of time that they've been farming. The things that I wanted to pull out of the particular areas of interest, there are a couple different questions on this, but every topic on the right-hand side here is one that 25% or more of the survey respondents said that they, needed help with or were interested in. And they are in order of percentage, though I didn't put the percentages on there. So it, at the top, that's grant programs, compliance regulation, and grant writing. Honestly, as from a nonprofit that's an ag service provider, that is not surprising to me. We provide this service quite a bit with our program. So an instant connection that I see for Connecticut RC&D in the future of 65 Main is offering our programs through the facility and through the network that's built with this facility. And then we see the same thing we were kind of talking about before, exploring new markets, pricing and profit, business expansion. So it's not that startup interest from this survey group, but how to expand from there. Next slide. And then the agricultural and farming topics of interest. On the left-hand side, again, there are many more topics that the respondents saying that they were interested in or needed help with. And the top three are climate smart farming, food processing, which we've talked about a bunch tonight, and disease control. Another big one was renewable energy production, again, where I think RC&D could fit in because we have a energy program where we help farms get energy grants. On the right-hand side, which I think is important for all of us as folks that may be either utilizing this facility or trying to get folks to enter the facility and be involved there, these are the top ways that they want to receive this information. So workshops, on-farm demonstrations, farm tours, and instructional videos. And instructional videos may be a great way to fit in with the school too. So this is a condensed version of the survey. My overall thoughts, I think was that my last slide?
Maybe? No, one more.
One more. Oh, the last one I don't have to read. You can go to it, Tara, but this is just some quotes that we got from the folks who participated that I wanted to share. Looking for a space to hold workshops, cold storage or freezer lockers would be great. Trying to identify distribution channels, understanding, cottage bills and things like that. So my takeaway from all of this is, one, our survey results so we've had a bunch of different ways that people are participating between the survey and in the room and online, from all different backgrounds. But this survey in particular did have an audience that was more experienced and not necessarily in the startup realm. So what I see from that is maybe a really good resource to connect new and beginning farmers or business owners with these people. But these people also have their own needs, and maybe we can look at how we can address across the board, maybe expand our view a little bit further beyond that new and beginning phase. So happy to answer any questions. I don't have the data with me, of course, so I can dig into that if there are any there, but that's what we have for our survey results.
Thanks, Jocelyn.
Thank you.
So I want to apologize to my friend Dan Bennett. I thought he wasn't going to be around tonight, so I didn't ask him to be prepared to come up and talk. So I'm not going to ask him to either. So another obviously important aspect of this is that small business connection, right? We do talk a lot about the agriculture and food system aspect of it, partly because I think it speaks to people emotionally, but also because of sort of expressed community priorities about how people who live here see themselves. But, a basic purpose of this facility that, the federal government has poured some money into is the general idea of homegrown economic development in our own small business communities. So I will give Dan a shout out. After the last workshop, he on his own steam went and connected to the Connecticut office of the United States Small Business Administration. And through that, we've already started to build out some of the mentoring relationships that will help us build the master plan. And I'm going to stop screen share for just 1 second, because I want to see. Yeah, and a person a couple of people I've been connected with are here in the Zoom room, and I may call on them, but I'm going to go back now to where I was. Okay. So Dan set up a con call with some folks from Connecticut Small Business Administration Office to see how we can ask them to apply their expertise to our local project. So we've already started to do some of those things. We've set up for anybody a webinar that's going to be co-hosted by the town. Of course, it's on the internet. So what does co-hosting even mean other than that, we were arranged for it. And that's going to be for introductory business skills. So I would encourage anybody who has that interest to dial in. The other thing that through that connection we've done is we have started the planning process for a resource fair with the regional offices from Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut to connect with small business owners, either aspiring or existing, who want to learn more, get more skills, build those skills. Another important thing that came out of that call that Dan helped set up was a conversation or a series of conversations that I've now had with the Connecticut Small Business Development Center that is housed at UConn. And they offer, as you can see on the slide, no-cost confidential advising services to prospective and existing entrepreneurs. Our project is a little bit outside that space in that I, as the consultee, am not myself the entrepreneur, but I am looking to get information to build that master plan and that business plan for what that's going to be. Look, I've got a lot of skills, I guess. I mean, grant writing maybe, and an alarming ability to generate ideas. It alarms me with some frequency, but I am not myself a business person, an entrepreneur. I don't have that specific experience. So I've connected with Denise Whitford, who is in the Zoom room on the call. And if she wants to take herself off mute, certainly I would welcome that. I did put together a very rough preliminary business plan based on what I think is our path, which is developing some kind of volunteer-based cooperative from the jump, which, like the Willimantic Co-op, would transition over time to having actual staff. What are the mechanisms for that? How do we actually do that? Are there complications about being a municipality when we do that? And I don't know how to answer those questions on my own, but I had a great call with Denise last week. Denise, if you don't mind taking yourself off mute to share your impressions of that call, that would be fantastic. If you're there, she's there. Well, she's still. All right, we'll go back. We can always be flexible. And another thing that she hit in, oh, are there? Maybe not. Another thing that she had indicated to me as something that they could do would be to connect us to people who might be able to be part of an advisory board. Again, we've done great work locally, right? This room of volunteers has been fantastic. Do the people in this room see themselves as the board? Perhaps not, maybe. But expanding that reach, I think, also expands the reach of the program into funding mechanisms and other kinds of access to capital that perhaps if we're just keeping it within the single community, we wouldn't have as many opportunities. So I will not belabor that anymore. Oh, except to also call out the Thompson Business Association, who are our small business owners, right? They are our entrepreneurs existing. But as we've said frequently, you know, with 500 small businesses in town, over 400 of them are registered to residential addresses in sole proprietor LLCs. So that means either by happenstance or intent, in some cases, these are people working out of their homes. Is that their ideal? We don't know. Are they there because they don't have the either the direct skills or the willingness to take risks for something like an office space that we could mitigate that risk by having the shared facility and the workshopping opportunities, the meeting space, the connection to potential interns through the school, that marketing program. So building that ecosystem and TBA, I certainly hope will continue in that role. So I will continue.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. Who is it?
Hi, yeah, this is Murray Gates. It might say William on my profile there, but and apologize if the loud background noise as I'm driving. I do work with Denise, so I did want to just chime in here at the Small Business Development Center. This is the second time I've dialed in. I think I had introduced myself at a meeting a month or two ago, but just wanted to let you know that the Small Business Development Center certainly is interested in supporting your endeavors there. And we can certainly talk offline about how we can do that. But my role is specifically around helping folks in the agricultural industry in the state of Connecticut to reach their business goals. Denise has been doing this for a lot longer than I have and is a little bit more of a generalist. She'll help anybody in a small business realm, whereas I'm focused on people in the food industry and agriculture. I will just before I sign off here, say that I do have a couple of other clients of mine in the state of Connecticut that are food hubs or are aspiring food hubs. So there's a pretty broad interest throughout the state in doing some of the things that you're looking to do, and would be happy to introduce you to some of those clients if they agree, and sharing some of their lessons learned.
Thanks, Murray. I'm glad you were able to chime in.
Sure, thank you.
All right, so we are coming up on. All right, so here's one of the things that we promised that would be participatory for you guys, and we did discuss this a little bit in the last, not just a little bit, a lot in the last meeting. It came up that, and I think it was actually Maura's suggestion initially, that before we get too much further into the master plan process, that authorship, that we should establish a mission statement. And Jocelyn tooled around with some AI bots and brought in some suggestions. And we tore those apart. We tore those apart. What you see on the screen was not written by a bot, but did come out of our group discussion at the last meeting, so I just wanted to read it out here and give a few minutes to discuss this, and then a few minutes to discuss another thing, specific topic, and then hold the last half hour for general conversation. So the proposed mission statement that we drafted last time. Our mission is to support and accelerate the growth of local entrepreneurship through tailored resources, expert guidance, and strategic partnerships. We embrace a sustainable and regenerative agricultural business and human ecology. So I've talked plenty. Y'all talk now. You don't even have to raise your hands. And if you're in the Zoom room, just take yourself off mute because I can't see you. Come on now, come on. Don't make me.
Tara, this
Go ahead,
is,
Valerie.
yeah, I would like, I like the words. I would like the second sentence, the last sentence, I guess that is, maybe, to be a higher priority in the, and come earlier in the mission statement.
So essentially swapping the two sentiments after our mission is to. So I'll read it that way and you tell me if this is what you mean. Our mission is to embrace a sustainable and regenerative agricultural business and human ecology. We support and accelerate the growth of local entrepreneurship through tailored resources, expert guidance, and strategic partnerships.
That feels better to me, but I'm just one person.
People are nodding. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it makes good sense because the mission is to, I mean, if we're thinking about the two statements, the mission is to embrace. How we do that is by supporting and accelerating. So I think it does, I think it makes good sense to make that change.
Sure. Other thoughts? Karen?
Just the word local is maybe too not broad enough, maybe regional.
Sure.
I echo regional.
I like that. Other thoughts?
I can't say regenerative for the life of me, I feel like, and I skip it every time I see it. So.
There's too many syllables.
Well, the good news is you don't have to like stand with your hand over your heart and say it, right?
Yes.
I mean, we could make that, you know, a condition of membership. I don't know.
Memorize our mission statement.
Like the Apostolic Creed. That second statement, I think, is one that I riffed on when we were discussing, and that was based on Maura chiming in and saying, you know, when we were starting with that idea about the entrepreneurship, which obviously is a focus, it didn't touch on that thing which is in some ways most unique, which is that permaculture aspect and permaculture in its largest sense, connecting those types of ecologies.
Yeah.
So that is why I chose the word regenerative. It may be that there is a better word.
No, it's a good word. I do hope that people read that, they understand it, because I feel like, you know, I understand it, but they haven't studied, you know, so I don't know. Does that make sense to people? You know what that means?
I think it's a good encapsulating statement, both regardless of which order they're said in. It seems kind of written with all big words. Right. So I like it. I can read it. I can understand it. But it sounds like I prefer big company. It sounds like it came out of somebody HR.
Maybe in addition to the mission statement, there is a, what was that? Remember we had a like a byline, or that's not the right Yeah, like
Oh, yeah, and I didn't include that, but that is in the notes from the last
somewhere.
meeting.
We had, yeah, so we did have sort of like. I don't remember what it said.
I don't remember what it was off the top.
But it was like, you know, 4 words, and it was like what you would put on a T-shirt, or you know what I mean, where this would be like in the bylaws or something, but you know. But yeah,
So I'm
because
wondering,
nobody's gonna walk around and say this,
No, business agriculture hub or something, yeah.
right?
so I wonder if it makes it a little less sterile, which I think is where you're really at, is to tinker with what on the screen is the first sentence, because that is corporate speak. Tailored resources, expert guidance, strategic partnerships.
Right, what does that mean?
Maybe there's something in there that can either be made more specific or more, for lack of a better term, folksy. Right,
Right.
is that where we're at?
Right.
Yeah, this company I worked for had mission statement,
Right.
values. Mission statement is what we were doing, values is how we did it. And the values were each the 3 or 4 words with a sentence after them as to
Mhm.
how they fulfill the mission statement.
Okay, so I'll give myself some homework. I'll flip the statements around. That's easy. And then tinker with that corporate speak about, you know, those methods by which we achieve those ecologies.
And I would, but I'm not.
Do we want to touch on education?
Go ahead.
Do we want to touch on education, either something that's provided or we do help educate the students, for example, at our school, at this facility?
That is a good point, Steve. On school/education.
And again, I don't have any specific sentence or anything, but just as a, you know, an area that I know we've touched on in the past. It seems like it might be part of our mission.
Yeah, I think that goes part of the way to de-sterilizing that, what currently is the first sentence, that educational component.
Right,
And,
expert,
and maybe again, I don't have a specific sentence in mind, but sort of the community involvement is, I think, part of the mission. And again, how to say it exactly, I'm not sure, but so, you know, to incorporate something along, you know, discussing the community involvement in what we're doing. I think that's a big part of what's happening. So maybe
Yeah.
that could be incorporated.
I mean, I think just reading it and sort of rearranging the words a little in my head right now, to support.
About your expert guidance, academic involvement, something to do with academic educational involvement.
Yeah, so let's think. So to support and accelerate the growth of regional entrepreneurship through, I mean, expert guidance is mentorship, right? Through mentorship.
and then strategic partnerships is.
And
community
tailored,
involvement,
and,
right?
yeah, and tailored education, but not tailored, some word other than tailored. Yeah, education.
I do make a suggestion
Go ahead.
in doing good, you know, bounce stuff around. We have the high school that has the marketing program.
Ah.
Maybe run this up the hill and say, hey, you guys play around with this as well.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
because that's,
it's a great
like,
idea.
it ties it back,
Right,
full circle ties it back.
Are you-
it's also, I mean,
Educational involvement.
Yeah,
it also brings in another. You know. Demographic to the conversation that
Yes.
isn't really represented here in this room.
They bail on us after their.
You want to say something?
I was just gonna say, if you keep the word strategic, you could say strategic and educational partnerships.
there you go, man. Strategic and educational partnerships. Or strategic and, well, no, academic is too dry, so yeah, educational.
And educational partnerships.
Like, the way I see it, and maybe that, I mean, that's a good point, right? What is that? The way that I think about it is. Thinking about who was brought in on this project. So ECCD has a very strong conservation focus. And the skills to be able to work on that permaculture part of it. RC&D, offers agricultural programs, and we work a lot with that community. Teague is a direct line into Thompson and providing resources. The business group is, so when I'm thinking strategic partnerships, that's what I think. What do we need? And then who do you call on to help make something happen?
So maybe the word instead of strategic is meaningful,
Yeah, I would,
meaningful part.
yeah. Also, strategic to me comes off as could almost be negative, like strategically called upon you for your advice, you know what I mean?
Machiavellian.
Yeah. I like that, meaningful.
Yeah,
Meaningful.
yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah, it's all encompassing.
Or we had the comment about community involvement and it could be community partnerships. But that doesn't address the need of, well,
Meaningful community partnerships does sound good.
So I've got a couple notes here, and obviously I've got the recordings, but I like your idea, Matt, which is, maybe I'll draft out a couple of versions of this. Flipping the language around in a couple of different ways and send it up to Kelly and her kids. To see how they feel about it and how they communicate it back to us, because one thing that kids will not be likely to do is speak in corporate speak.
Right.
Along those lines, the word partnerships to me sounds kind of corporate speak. It's collaborating. That's less of a.
Meaningful collaborations.
Yep.
Maybe.
Another word with another word with
Look who's here. Hi, Melinda.
love. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm gonna put a pin in this and do that. I'll draft a few versions of this with slightly different language. So let's go to the last slide, and then we'll have that last half hour for just let's talk. What are we gonna call the place? And we touched on this a little bit last time too, which is that we keep calling it 65 Main, but I will point out that there's a restaurant called 85 Main in the next town.
And another restaurant in Concord that's called the number.
Yeah, right.
87 Grill.
85 Main.
Right.
Grill 37.
Grill 37, 85 Main, 65 Main, Hope in Main,
Yeah.
right? So it starts to get a little reiterative. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
What the names of the family? I mean, Harriet wasn't Harriet the name of the mother?
Yeah,
So
it was.
is there some way we could talk about Harriet and the two daughters.
In fact, Joe, was it specifically Harriet Turtelot who purchased the house, right? Yeah. Yes, and that was raised at the last meeting too, the Turtelots. On a personal note, this project would never have been able to have happened at all if it hadn't been for the late Joe Lindley, who long before I came on the scene had written the documents describing the history, describing the limits of the will, the purpose of not just housing the superintendent, but remitting income back to the school. In like the greatest example of how times change, it was $20 a month rent for the superintendent, and after all expenses were paid, the excess was to fund the school trip. I know, which is, I mean, it was, it was the early 1900s, but whatever. But the Turtelot Lindley Small Business Support Center, that's a mouthful, right? It's got to be things that people are going to say, and again, come out of the mouth easily and organically.
Well, you could make an acronym a mouthful.
Yeah, to different initials.
Early.
Can I inject the thought that I had tonight while we're sitting here?
Yes, please.
I like everything that's been said up here, and I totally get paying homage to the original family and all that. But what about selling name rights? So what? Sponsorship. Selling name rights, like it's the Brian Lafredo Small Business Support Center.
Well, whose name are you thinking of?
Well,
saying,
he's
like,
suggesting that we should a major donor.
when the school was that we're talking about, let's find that major donor. That might be a reason why a big name family would want to step up with a big donation.
That's why Eternal Lot is called Eternal.
Right,
Mhm.
just a thought.
Sounds like a competition.
I mean, nobody has named it anything, so, and this is, 5 minutes of time that I've got dedicated to it.
If there isn't an appetite for the entire facility to have that process, you could do it as the outdoor education center or the, community kitchen or the whatever, the library or, you can,
Conference room.
yeah, exactly. You can kind of do it in smaller pieces too.
Just the whole thing.
Yeah.
Calling it 65 feet isn't.
I'd like some
If you ever have the 85 feet, it's a restaurant,
Yeah, but it's not in this town.
No, but it's just an address.
Yeah, but you're right, it seems kind of cold.
It doesn't communicate what is there. It does to us because we're speaking in shorthand to each other. But when you're going outside the world,
Community.
if somebody is stumbling upon the TikTok account or the Instagram account or whatever else, what provides meaning within the first 5 seconds of looking at the image or the mission statement or the message?
And to complicate that, what hashtag, would be associated with that name that then is on TikTok? Because if it is a 50-character name, that's not gonna be what people are finding it by. So the acronym or whatever.
Mr. Lenke.
Just keep it, keep it simple, still keep the Harriet name with it. The Harriet House or whatever, and then have all the little different entities like Joe Lindley and whoever that can really contribute, so you can take a part of this. You put Joe Lindley's name over here, and you put so-and-so's name over here, but still basically keep it to her because she's the one that got this whole thing going, the house before the, for the superintendent and everything. That was the whole intent. Was, to help. It wasn't part of the school, Turtle, it's part of the Turtle Lot family, but it's not really part of the Turtle Lot High School and all that stuff. This was a separate entity. So I think being focused just to Harriet, come up, with Harriet House or Harriet House on 65 Main Street.
Harriet Manor.
Anne typed into the chat Harriet's Hope, which.
Harriet's Homestead. Any word that applies to dwelling.
Ties into the agriculture part of it.
How about doing a contest to pick a name?
We could do that too.
That's a great idea. I think we've mentioned that before, have a town-wide contest or have.
We're doing it right now for the America 250 logo. So we should space them out.
And it's Valerie.
Go ahead, Valerie.
I like all these points that people are making and ideas. I also think maybe this is worth also running up the hill to the marketing group, see what they come up with too. And maybe there's a list of suggestions, and also run this through AI. Ask AI to come up with some names, and maybe there's a list that people can choose from.
No, I don't think so.
Well, we did have some good AI bot results that we modified to come to the mission statement.
This is a name of.
Yeah.
I mean, history. Harriet.
It is hard for an AI bot to derive meaning from
A person.
people's names.
Yeah.
That is true.
I like the Harriet's House idea because then you can put for Harriet's House for agriculture and business innovation or something. So maybe it's not Harriet's House, but being able to put,
Harriet's
it's like,
Place.
there's a short, there's a
Place.
short name that then you kind of put that bio tagline after it.
Subtitles.
Yeah,
Because you want people to still understand that that's how this whole house and this property came about was.
Belong to her.
So if we use some other name, we're taking that away from them.
Correct.
Personally, I personally think that's the issue.
What does Mr. Iamartino think?
What?
Harriet wanted the name for a family.
Oh.
That would be fine.
Oh, you can name it our daughter's names, Lucy or Hattie.
Joe, has the building ever had a common date? Knuckles.
That's a good question. It probably was
No,
superintendent's
it-
house.
No, it didn't. It did, from my recollection of this. From years ago, no.
He changed.
But it was always, we always knew it as Harriet, Turtle, on. That's bought the house for that reason.
I think, again, we've got things to work with here, including coming up with a few, sending them up to the kids in Kelly's class. Seeing what speaks to them, seeing what they come back with. And I mean, we've heard a lot of these priorities, I think, multiple times. Including the Turtle Lot name. From a strictly speaking marketing perspective, there is that idea of it's something in the function of what it is should be somewhere, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the proper name. Whoever said the subtitle, right? The subtitle on the signage could indicate that it's Harriet's House for Business and Agricultural Development or whatever, but Harriet's House is what everybody calls it, or whatever it ends up being.
Look what Ellis Tech, I mean, isn't that called like Harvard H. Ellis Regional Technical Vocational School?
Correct.
And everybody calls it Ellis.
Right.
So
Is not being from Thompson, are there other locations in town that are called Turtle Lot other than the high school?
no, nothing, and nobody knows how to spell it. Oh, they don't pronounce Grovenadale the right way.
I know.
All that crazy French Canadian thing. Yes, Dave.
This, no other Turtle Lot.
Agricultural Research Center.
Agricultural Research.
I wouldn't get too specific in the name, because things change. We're not even up and running yet.
I like the idea of using Thompson. Thompson, that's easy enough, right? It's.
And Thompson owns it, right, the town.
The town does own it. It belongs to us all. Well, I have a half hour, the last half hour scheduled for just open discussion on anything that we've heard, talked about, seen, haven't talked about. The last 6 months under the grant, that's a writing project for me, but your input, even outside the structure of these workshops, is still important. Ongoing. I mean, what have we missed? What haven't we talked about that here on this final evening we want to say to each other?
We touched on it a few meetings ago, actually, but I haven't been to every meeting, I was one or two, but whether it's a co-op or the membership structure, who has access and when, who's in charge of opening the door and things like that, and the keys are gonna, things like that, it's maybe further down the road, but just a skeleton of the structure would be a good idea to have, what do you have, it's a co-op or whatever.
Right.
And you touched on it a little bit earlier tonight, if it's co-op, how can that be run by the town, and still be a co-op, and be volunteer and still be run by the town, and liability and things like that. That's something that I don't know if we can discuss here, can discuss, I don't know if we have a resolution to go on like that. So that's something.
Well, those are some of the things, the finer legal points of co-ops versus other organizational structures are part of what I'm hoping to get out of the new relationship with the Small Business Development Center and, their advisors and their mentors. That does seem like a promising angle. I mean, it may be that legally it isn't exactly what a co-op would be, but it functions similarly too, right? The liability piece, the town has liability insurance every time you're in a building that we own. You know, whether I'm here or not, if you're in this room and you get wounded, it's the town's liability that covers it. And that's true of the parks, that's true of, you know, it doesn't mean that we don't have to answer those questions in the plan. Karen?
So in that vein, like, is the town gonna plow the driveway, cut the lawn, I mean, how is the maintenance?
You know, between that and the rain garden, that question is very pertinent.
It is pertinent, and I don't have the simple answers to those questions, certainly. You know, if we are talking about a facility that is maintained by a cooperative, by a membership, be they volunteer or whatever other structure. I mean, so one of the reasons a co-op appeals to me is that in all volunteer co-ops, a part of your commitment is you do X number of hours per month, week, quarter, whatever. So to me, that is the natural way to accomplish simple tasks. The town does own it and does currently mow the grass occasionally, more often lately. But it's not like that grass is growing up above your knees and, you know, I'm not going over there with a mower, so somebody from the town is. But if you remember the, no, I'm not sharing that there anymore.
Maybe somewhat on par with like the movie where the town owns the fields, right? Somebody, I don't know who maintains the fields, I've never been involved in that, really. But then, you know, the people who take, you know, the coaches and stuff, they do a lot of the, so I don't, it might be something kind of on par with that. It's town owned facilities, but it's volunteer maintained and volunteer.
The rec department doesn't take.
I don't know, I don't know. I'm just-
The parks
Yeah.
owned by the town are governed jointly, as I understand it, by the Recreation Department and the Department of Public Works. The Recreation Department does not have maintenance staff. The maintainers are seasonal DPW workers. You know, and that season may be very long, but yeah, that's why the town advertises for seasonal help. But I don't know how in-depth that maintenance is. As far as I'm aware, it's essentially mowing and maybe doing a little trash pickup here and there.
Right, but I think like, where I grew up, the fields were maintained by coaches and stuff as volunteers, you know, because the city workers were raking the infields and things like that. So I have no idea how it's here.
And I only know that very basic piece of it because I'm not recreation or public works.
Thinking about the, oh, I'm sorry, I just heard.
No, I was just gonna add about all the permaculture, like, that can be worked out, like. Really having a lawn, and it doesn't have to be a lawn, can it be a ground cover that? Yeah, it's or something that does not need to be mowed, so there are things out there.
Pollinates.
There are things out there, so, and I think it's such a small space we're talking about that would actually be on, right, it's very.
Yeah,
small.
because
The rest of it is
if we were to go back and
on-
look at the concept
It's
plans,
areas.
yeah, any lawn area is minor. And the rest of it is intended to be gardened, terraced, planted with
Paths,
native
chips.
paths. So not that that's a no maintenance situation, but the part of the purpose of the permaculture ethos is that the maintenance is minimal because the systems mimic the natural ecologies. And the maintenance burden is obviously highest at the beginning and then gradually is supposed to reduce, but you're always gonna have to look for invasives.
There's giant trees there. We're talking about chestnuts that will eventually be 80 foot tall.
Oh, no.
Trees.
No, they have the ones that don't grow that tall.
Well, either way, a tree still needs to be, let's not think that just because something is native
Oh,
in
no.
a human landscape,
Oh,
something
no,
does
I'm not
need to
saying
be
that, yeah, there's definitely
maintained.
maintenance, but like, you can do processing and things, so this is all part of the, like, yeah, someone needing to step up and say, I'm interested in this piece, and this part of the project, and maybe that will be their thing.
I just think we shouldn't do ourselves a disservice of saying like, oh, it's because it's native, it won't need to be maintained, and then now it's a surprise 5 years down the road, that tens of thousands of dollars of work goes into maintaining the property, that type of landscape.
But because of the kind of
It should.
plants, you're not gonna be
It's
mowing
not a
lawn
problem.
every week, and it's not gonna be an acre mowing, it's gonna be 100 square feet.
And as far as the inside of the building, both Willimantic Co-op and Hope and Main have a fee structure for their membership. So, one of the comments that came in from the survey was, I would love to be able to rent freezer space and cold storage. So depending on the ultimate plan for the space, people participating in that space would participate in a fee structure to be in there. And how that works with the town, I don't know, but that's how these other organizations have set up.
Well, even in the very, very first proposals that I worked up, when I was presenting them to the Turtle Lot Trust and the Board of Education, which were very rudimentary. Yes, the rough projected profit and loss was based on service for fee. Space rentals, as the sort of the baseline, because that's space, right? That doesn't require expertise to have space. And then how would you build it out once it has that educational component where you're paying to access information? The balance, of course, is if it's going to support your local micro entrepreneurs, really, which is what a kitchen table LLC starts off as. It can't be priced out of their reach, or else you've defeated your entire purpose. But that doesn't mean that it has no cost associated. You just have to make your value for cost very high, or at least very clear, right? A clear benefit to a Thompson Business Association member. Maybe that's the seed of the organization that is housed there. And they already have a membership structure, so maybe as that evolves, what gets built into the TVA membership is, hey, here's your 2 hours a week that you need to be here doing these tasks, but in exchange for your membership dollars and your minimal amount of labor, you get access to all of this. A desk, a phone, meeting hours, an intern.
I was just thinking a laminator, like a little, like a printer thing, things.
That like little copies.
Yeah.
Scanning, printing.
Mentorship, that's part of the benefit too. is
And
that-
mentorship.
that mentorship. Dan's on call every Tuesday night, mentoring people. And not me, yeah, I'm not, but yeah, that's part of the membership benefit as well.
Yep.
That really needs to be highlighted.
Mr. Iamartino?
The administrative under town ownership has certain languages that has to follow. So it's occurred a couple of different times. It's to an entity that operates the facility. So I think what we can do, we've got enough legal language over who's involved with this too. There's enough legal language out there that we can pull together 2 or 3 pages and say, you've got a structure A, B, C, D. Somehow the town is still the owner, and how it gets to the entity that will administrate the facility. And someone else could be using the facility, or multiple people could be using the facility under a general admin organization. I think we should just get a subcommittee together, draft those 3 pages and bring it forward. So at least we have a place to start. That's.
Would you like to be on that subcommittee, Joseph Iamartino?
It's been done a number of times now, so you should at least start.
Yeah. And again, I am hoping to get some feedback through the research that Denise from SBDC is doing on our behalf. And she and I did have a great conversation the other day. Denise, are you there and able to take yourself off mute to jump in?
I am here and I just took myself off mute.
Excellent. We'd love to hear what you have to say at this juncture.
I am fascinated with all the great ideas that have come across. I'm so delighted to come in. I know that this is my first meeting. It's your last. There's an awful lot of opportunities here. And I think as we do the research, it's going to come down to, I think, in my opinion, providing you with what some of the options are for the small business community. I love the idea of making this a real community center that comes to the grassroots, pun intended, for what started your community and how that community continues to thrive. So I've heard the most recent comment in relation to legal terminology and how things are done. And that's really what I'm in the process of pulling research. There are similar community facilities in other parts of the country. I'm going to assemble some of that and provide it for you, Tyra, to move that forward. Do you have questions for me to address or specific things you want me to comment on?
No, earlier I was sort of interested in having you describe a little bit of your role as an SBDC mentor, but we are coming on the end of the night. So, I mean, you certainly don't have to do that, but
yeah, I don't mind giving a little bit of background.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I was double duty a little bit ago. So if you queued me up earlier, my apologies. My role as a business advisor is to really work with entrepreneurs and businesses to get them started and grow. A lot of my background from economic development and banking is tied into that. The number one reason or two reasons that they come to us is to either start their business and get access to capital. There's a variety of fundamentals that we look at in putting business structure together. And whether those are agri-based businesses or biotechnology or even Main Street businesses, we provide a lot of tools and research to teach and guide and support them throughout their process, keeping them grounded in analytics and data. At the same time, we look at marketing. What's it going to take to get the word out there now that you're in business? How do they find you? Where do they go? And then pricing models, all those good things. So I'm naming the top couple of 20 or so. But a center like this, especially in your part of the state, is in such high demand. And I think that the communities that I spend time in are usually at economic development offices, in chambers of commerce, in incubators and accelerators across the state. There's a growing demand for that. And the fact that the town of Thompson has this and is thinking about it is phenomenal. I think there's a great opportunity out there. But again, I don't want to be slighted by or biased by my current experience. I think we've got to do some more research to figure out what really is the highest and best use for that facility to meet those needs and your desires.
Yeah, thank you, Denise.
You're welcome.
Oh, look at that. Brian Santos came in right as we're done. He came in for
time is perfect.
So it is just about 10 of, certainly we can keep talking for the next 10 minutes. By all means, get pizza, because, you know, the town paid for it, so eat it. But yeah, last thoughts, wrap up. I mean, this is the last of these workshops. Obviously, I will continue to take any feedback you have via email, phone call, drop-ins. I'll be organizing a call with the actual organizational partners from the grant to talk through that last 6 months of the writing of the master plan. When we tie all this information together, flesh out some of the stuff that we've discussed skeletally, incorporate whatever is going to come back from this new relationship with Denise and her organization. But yeah, parting thoughts for the recording. David?
I mean, looking at this slide, it is lacking solar panels.
It is lacking solar panels, and we just put a brand new roof on it.
You can put them on top. What kind of, just regular?
Asphalt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
architectural.
honestly, there's a lot of property there. I might put a crowd out in solar. I'm not sure why they didn't go with Spanish style.
By the way, when we got these renderings, back from Wayne, our architect on staff, Steve Lewis, said, "Why is that a Spanish villa?"
Mediterranean climate.
Yeah, exactly. You may as well give us your thoughts, Santos, since you came in at the event. On any of it, I don't know. Come on, you're my partner in crime on this.
Project's going slow, but surely, so it's getting there.
What's happening now? The outside's being finished up and then you've got to do all that inside stuff?
Right, so again, under the very first renovation grant, which was whatever it was, 244,000 from US Small Business Administration, that will finish up with what we're doing now, which is the exterior painting. And I think we have an exterior door that's gonna go in, we can just skate in under that money as well. Then that expends that grant. And the $4,047,484 has the remaining renovation money included in it. And that also includes the architectural, because we only have the architectural for the exterior, the basement and the first floor. That's all our first charitable donation would cover. So when I wrote the SIF grant, I took all of the stuff I knew we had gaps to fill and I stuffed it in that box. So that money to finish the architectural before, yeah, the whole thing will be done.
Yeah, right now it's just studding walls.
That's a lot of work to do.
Well, you were in it, right?
I was in it.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that was months ago.
Well, nothing's happened on the interior because we've been working on the exterior. But
So there's no interior flow.
not for the second and third floor. For the first floor and the walkout basement, yeah, we have architectural drawings. That was a part of what we were able to pay for with a private donation to get the architecture.
Basement, is that dry and finished? Will it be dry and finished?
It's dry. It will be finished.
Yeah.
It will be finished.
I'm just curious. I've been looking for inside and outside at some point. I just my time.
I got the key. Anytime you want to go in there, you let me know, except not right now.
No. Let's walk around the building. I don't know. I remember the back was plotted. Sink that. I redid all that with the saw. Reframed everything. I couldn't jack up the floor because there was thinking that was problematic. But I did what I could with it. So it's going to cause us to do some more floor flashing or leveling inside. But that's okay. Everything's going to be able to support it. It's structurally sound. The building is bones pretty good. Unfortunately, it does like balloon framing, the old style balloon framing. So there's a little bit extra work with fire ratings and stuff. Outside of that, it's pretty strong structure.
So there's gonna be a gap. The house is gonna be fixed. Then there's that gap to wait for more money to start doing the out.
Yeah,
door
but
stuff.
there's no way projects like this happen without some kind of charitable grant, government funding until they become self-sustaining. Now, look, I've had a hot hand, right? I have been able to pull 2 federal, now 1 big state, and another federal on the way coming that will get the physical stuff done. The functional stuff, that is a challenge that we have to build into this master plan, which is going to involve the discussion of, the whatever membership fees, cooperatives, but will almost certainly involve at least one more implementation grant from some source to launch a curriculum. But that doesn't necessarily have to happen immediately, because once we have a renovated structure, since we're already putting in place things with resources that we have through the school, through the business association, we can get it at least doing something, right? Showing some kind of program income, because what that will enable me to do, and when I go back for a larger grant, is say, yes, it has a stream, but in order to enhance the stream, we need this next level. You know, the grants are going to get harder to get because we've already had so much investment. Like, you can't go back to the same well on the same project, and we're never going to have match funding. So, you know, the little unicorn grants that come up, or the private foundations that over time you can maybe sell naming rights to, right? At some point, we're going to have to get creative to fund all those last steps. But in the meantime, we can use it. And all of that just makes it better. And look, if we're going to, like, worst case scenario it, right? Worst case scenario, 5 to 7 years from now, this endeavor, as we have described it, is a failure. Nobody uses the facility, right? This is a legitimate possibility. Do you know what we have? A building that the town owns that is 100% clean and that can be repurposed for some other community use. So there's no loss here, even if what we are discussing and what we are planning does not behave the way we want it to. It would be a disappointment, but it becomes something else.
We'll say this in general, because I'm over there quite a bit, trying to fix things. As everyone knows, found out Main Street, there's a lot of renovation. People are doing work, yeah, to their properties, right? There was a gentleman that approached me, he saw me out and literally my truck light was wrong. My son and I, my carpenter with us, framing us, and he goes, "Well, you guys are inspiring me then." My renovation over there said, "Good, start it next week." Like, because, you know, you got superior storage.
House next door.
House
House next
door,
door.
like, beautiful.
It's terrible.
On the corner across from Triple Raven.
Yeah.
You know,
She
we
got a lot
got
of money in that.
St. Joe's is gonna start hopefully, you know, early next year, March, April, whenever they got started, so that'll be all done. So it's showing, to your point. One reason I was so adamant about doing this project is our youth, right? It's a town-owned property. It's been abandoned for 10 years. Show a little effort. Show these kids that shit can happen. Put a little time in, right? So even that basic principle is huge for our community, and I think people are noticing.
Yeah, and when you tie in the work that's now going to happen because of this $4+ million investment by the state of Connecticut, right? Saying that we have sold them a revitalization story that they believe in. Now it's not just an it becomes not just an abstract that I've sold as a narrative. The road is going to be reconstructed. All of the houses in this neighborhood are going to benefit from that new surface, from those sidewalks, all of the small businesses that are going to get connected, St. Joseph's School, the new tenants that are there, the facility, obviously, the improvements to the parks, seems like a small thing, but Swanson Park is across from one of our most prominent restaurants, right? Expands their curb appeal and encourages exactly the kind of infill development that people walk into my office, sometimes with hostility, and say, why aren't there more businesses in this town?
Okay.
Right?
But no, but they have some time.
Right, so all of this is setting a very elaborate table that will enable.
Riverside Drive, so after we did the sidewalks. I think people are taking care of their properties more. There's always a few select that some are lighting landscapes and trucks. Even the place next to the Dunkin' Donuts was, the Dunkin' Donuts guy bought that place next door. And
You're gonna make it a pizza place. Like this one.
Yeah.
Not that we need another pizza place, but it's a business. Revenue, yeah.
All right, guys, we are at exactly 8 o'clock. So I'm going to allow the Zoomers to sign off. Thank you for dialing in tonight. And just be kind, put your seats up so that the library staff doesn't have to be here extra long. Eat more pizza, drink more soda, take some apples. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, Tara, we owe you a giant round of applause for all you've done.
Thank you, Steve.
No, we really do. You've done a fantastic job. It's been a year. I appreciate all the work you've put into this.
Thanks, guys.